We need to talk about Arthur's darkest episode. Let's check it out, fam. Arthur's darkest episode.
PBS had a
This is
lot
the
of
show.
great shows.
This is the show I grew up watching quite a bit. However, they stopped showing it because I just stopped watching it. It's a show for like toddlers, so I stopped watching it after I turned 10 or something. Let's check it out. But I do remember like watching this quite a bit, especially at my grandparents'.
Shows for kids, but Arthur was truly top tier. I can't think of any other educational show that had an episode
You show me that video, and I already reacted to it.
that was directly related to 9/11 and expressed in such a clear way how some kids might cope with traumatic experiences. The show Arthur never shied away from touchy subjects of the 90s and early 2000s like homosexuality or book banning. But
Oh yeah.
today we need to
This show is iconic, but this is not their darkest episode, guys.
talk about what was perhaps Arthur's darkest episode. Interestingly enough, though, the show didn't use
I think every animated show goes for like one dark, quote unquote, dark episode. Or at least content creators will look for something that could be called a dark episode.
the exact event to represent the terrorist attack on 9/11, but instead chose to create a tense situation for Arthur and his neighborhood that anyone could relate to. This worked really well for the show and was a great way to symbolize the traumatizing effect that 9/11 had on those who were involved, both.
And bro, that's a touchy subject, even as a YouTuber, to make videos about. I hope I don't get in trouble just for watching this video. I don't think I will because it's already on YouTube, but
Directly and indirectly. It made the experience relatable to anyone without singling out those who might not have been alive yet when the attack occurred. You have to remember,
I was in like 3rd grade when it happened, man. It was all over the news. All over the news. The classroom across the street, they were watching like the newscast live because it was just a bad day. And however, in my classroom, uh, we talked about it, but we didn't really watch the television and stuff.
Arthur was an educational show that was meant for young kids, after all. So a lot of
All right, Pam, I really needed a snack.
parents watching reruns of the episodes likely weren't even born when the attack happened. The episode was titled April 9th, and as you'd expect, it was named after the same day as the in-show tragedy that struck the core of the entire town. The day in Elwood City
Wait, in-show tragedy. Oh, okay.
started as
No, naming a date. Wow.
it normally did,
Yeah, definitely referencing it.
and most of the students were at school, including
So many conspiracy theories arise from it, man.
Arthur. However, shortly after classes started, all the students and teachers were shocked to hear the fire alarm ringing through the halls. A fire had broken out in the building and everyone was forced to evacuate. Little did everyone realize, though, the fire would impact much more than the portion of the school that it physically damaged, and a lot of the students would have to learn to cope in their own way because of it. But how could a cartoon about a glasses-wearing aardvark relate this subject matter to actual kids in the real world?
Guys, I don't know what the word aardvark means. I thought it was a made-up word, but you just said it like it was a real word.
Well, the show went about it in a really smart way and broke the episode down into subplots, each of which covered
Bro, I was so young when it happened. I did not know how to react. So, hey, if I went home and watched a show like this, excuse me, it would influence my reaction. I'm sure.
a different way that someone may be affected by a traumatic experience, starting with Arthur. At the beginning of the episode, Arthur learned that his father was working as a caterer for the school and was actually on site during the fire. After the young boy was evacuated with the rest of his class, he turned to face the school and waited for his dad to emerge safe and sound. The episode made it clear that Arthur was getting more distraught as time continued to pass, and eventually he even started crying out for his dad and asked the firefighters to go inside and help.
Oh no, wait, what? Dang, bro.
Thankfully, not long after that, Arthur's father emerged from the school with nothing more than some ash marks on his face.
Ah, man. That's scary. That's scary.
He embraced his son, fully unaware of the damage that the fire had caused to Arthur's mental health. Throughout the rest of Arthur's portion of the episode, he is shown worrying about the safety of himself and his family. Every time his dad had to leave, Arthur would worry that he wouldn't come back. And
So he's getting like some PTSD systems from that, guys. I would also worry when my dad left for like a store or something and didn't come back.
as sad as that is, I think that's an amazing thing for a show like this to teach children. It shows kids that it's normal to be concerned after something major happens in their life. But what makes it even better is that the show teaches some great ways for anyone, adult or child, to cope. Once Arthur's dad realized what was going on with his son, he had a heart-to-heart with Arthur and explained that he didn't have to worry about him all the time.
Right.
According to Arthur's dad, it's the parents' job to worry about their child, not
Dang, I wish I'd seen the episode beforehand.
the other way around. And after they talked some more, Arthur began to worry less, showing just how healthy a good dialogue between parents and children can be. But what about the rest of Arthur's
There you have it.
classmates?
Oh, at a restaurant, fam. You gotta pay for those.
Sue Ellen's experience was an amazing representation of the effect that losing something sentimental can have on a person. And with the help of those around them, a person can learn to move forward without forgetting what's or who was so important to them. Since Sue Ellen
Hey, bro, I feel like I would have more to say if I actually seen it. I apologize, fam. I just jump into these. There was a chance I could have saw the episode, but I just don't remember it. So I likely haven't seen the episode because I have no memory of it.
usually played a smaller part whenever she appeared in an episode, the fact that they gave her a compelling storyline in this episode made the lesson even more impactful. Unlike most of the students, Sue Ellen could be seen looking back toward her classroom as she evacuated the building. This was because her treasured scrapbook that held all the memories from her family's travels was trapped inside of her backpack, which she was forced to leave behind. To make things even worse, as she stood outside waiting to be let back into the school to grab her backpack, she saw one of the firefighters carrying its burned and tattered remains. Sue Ellen wept as she looked at her treasure, which was now destroyed, and she was clearly wondering.
Bro, I used to make like stuff like that. One time, we were having our car cleaned, and the worker just like threw my book in there. In like the pocket, bro, and it pissed me off, bro. I immediately started crying.
How she could ever recover. I mean, it wasn't just paper that was destroyed, it was her literal memories, which I think a lot of people who have lost something sentimental can relate to.
For sure.
And remember, even though this episode was meant to symbolize the impact that 9/11 had on the world, they used a fire instead of a terrorist attack to make it relatable to everyone, even those who weren't impacted as much. Sue Ellen spent the rest of the episode mourning her lost memories, and her friend Muffy noticed this. In an attempt to help her friend, Muffy tried to give Sue Ellen a new, nicer scrapbook than the one that she lost in the fire. Sadly,
That's always good.
Muffy didn't realize that it wasn't necessarily the book that the young girl was mourning, but instead it was what was within its pages. Muffy continued to try to help Sue.
Basically, bro, I wish I had the stuff I made back then. I'm sure there's a way to get it back somehow. Some way. I think anything's possible. Fam.
Ellen feel better, but funny enough, it actually worked. Sue Ellen could see just how much her friends cared about her, and even though the new scrapbook couldn't possibly replace the old one, she saw that it could help her move
Yeah, just give her something to do. She'll forget about it, right?
forward. This is a great way to teach young kids that it's okay to move on from things that you've lost, even though you still miss them. And sometimes all it takes is a little help from your friends. Sue Ellen wasn't entirely over the loss of her original scrapbook, but with the help of those around her, the pain seemed to fade a little bit. Now, what about those people who weren't directly affected by 9/11? What sort of message did the April 9th episode of Arthur have for them? Well,
Bro, there's a chance I would not even make the connection they're trying to make if I watched the episode without seeing this video. Let's be real.
believe it or not, through Buster's subplot, the show taught kids that it's okay to not feel things as deeply as others around you might be feeling. It doesn't
Snap, bro. That's why I like animated shows. They always have like a little lesson or something.
Necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with you for not being impacted as much as others, especially if you weren't directly involved in the incident. In Buster's case, he actually wasn't in school on the day of the fire because he slept through his alarm. Therefore, he wasn't feeling the same sort of trauma that some of the other students were feeling. Instead, he sort of felt left out for missing the biggest event of the school year. So when he and the other students began
Anyone else feel like that growing up? Like your friends, you look away for a second, your friends see something cool, and then they all tell you about it, and you're like, "Dang, bro, I'm not. I wasn't there. I can't live the experience. It hurts."
attending a different school
Yeah, I got 3 different shirts on. It's
temporarily, in order to feel like he was a part of the group, he began lying about things that happened during the fire. Arthur ended up calling him out for being insensitive, which prompted Buster to ask his mom why he wasn't feeling as bad as the other kids, and this was when his mom taught him a valuable lesson. She assured him that his feelings were valid even if they were different from those around him. And the only reason he didn't feel as bad as the other students is that he wasn't there to experience it firsthand. But more importantly, there is nothing wrong with that. This can be
yeah, nothing wrong with experiencing something that that hurt lives in this virtual realm.
related to the 9/11 attack because even though it was an event that shook the nation, not everyone was directly affected by it. And because of that, the level of grief tended to vary.
Yeah, that was all the way, like literally on the almost exactly on the opposite side of the country. I live in California, so but to the ones that were there living it, my heart goes out to them.
Based on who you spoke to about it. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, what about those kids who saw the event happen? What do you think happened to them? Well, the only instance that we got to see where we actually know a student saw the fire was Binky, the school's tough guy, and the event actually made him a lot
Binky's head reminds me of a Goomba. Exactly of a Goomba. That's a Goomba head.
more cautious. You see, Binky was facing something that he couldn't simply power through, being one of the few students who actually saw the fire.
Yeah, he was the only one who saw it. This whole line, they can't see. They can only see straight forward. Yeah, they didn't smell the smoke or nothing. It was just this. It was just the Goomba.
He faced a fear that other students may not have had. When he went home on the night of the fire, Binky was watching TV and proceeded to have a very realistic PTSD reaction to seeing a fire on the show he was
Bro, I kind of had those things, but kind of don't.
watching. He even began testing out the fire alarm system at the new school by triggering it and measuring the response
Don't do that.
time of the local firefighters. While the episode doesn't dig too deeply into that part of the subplot, it clearly shows that Binky was terrified about what would happen if this new school they were attending happened to catch fire just like his old one. And to make things worse, he didn't even realize that he was experiencing PTSD. Binky didn't recognize that his behavior
Bro, I'm back. If I was a kid back then, I'd be so scared of everything. I don't know what anything is. That's how I grew up. We didn't have no phones back then. We had the television to tell us, and our teachers and our parents. That's it, and books.
was a sign of
We did have computers, but I didn't see. I didn't start using a computer till I was 12.
something deeper. So when he was asked why he pulled the fire alarm, all he could say was, "I don't know." As the episode continued, Binky met a retired firefighter who taught him a valuable lesson. The firefighter explained to Binky that when he experienced his first fire, he was afraid too. In fact, he would later explain that he faced a lot of the same trauma responses that this kid was facing, and that helped Binky a lot. It taught him, as well as everyone watching at home, that it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to not be okay. In life, you're gonna go through major events that might shake you to the core, and that's perfectly natural. All you can do is
That's why I'm scared, bro. That's why I'm scared of stuff like this happening, bro. I don't know how I'd prepare. I don't know how I'd react. Again, my heart goes out to every victim, man.
best to overcome your hardships and live life to the best of your ability. Most importantly, though, it's gonna take time. By the end of the episode, each of the kids was on their way to resolving their inner conflicts. But what is really nice about the show is that none of them got over their pain right away. Much like in real life, you can't get over something traumatic within a matter of minutes or days. It can take weeks, months, years, and sometimes even decades, depending on the pain and how one
Basically,
chooses to
it's scary.
cope. But what do you think about April 9th and Arthur's take on the 9/11 terrorist attack? Did they handle the topic of PTSD in young kids well? Well, be sure to let me
Think they're great with storytelling.
know your thoughts in the comments below. I look forward to reading.
That's a video, fam. Check out Cartoon Corruption in the description. Oh wait, we got somebody that worked on the show here. Okay, let's read this one. I was a storyboard supervisor on Arthur in the 1990s, and I spoke to Greg Bailey, the series director, about this episode recently. He said it was obvious he would do the show April 16th because we did our annual show meeting 1 week after 9/11 at WGBH in Boston. Peter Hirsch, and the writer of this episode, was still traumatized by it because he lives in Manhattan and was itching to write that episode. There are concerns from the WBH that we do not traumatize the kids in the audience. So came up with the fire angle. Peter showed up to Boston with his gas mask from NY, and I drove him to Boston for the meeting from Montreal. Going to the tiny Vermont border before the days of all that heavy border security and after the big traffic tie-up at the border in the days following the attack. I remember sitting at the small crossing in Vermont, waiting for the border guard to get out of his rocking chair and come see what I was doing. How many people use a little crossing? The family and some kids with a balloon walked across the line and he waved to them while directing me through. Anyways, this was an episode very important to Peter, so he took great care in that script. Note that Arthur voices and pre-production work was done in Montreal. Darn. Well, that's a video, Pam. See you next video. I wish the video maker would respond to that comment. That'd be cool. But anyway, see you next one.